We are gathered here today to discuss HBO Lanterns. Is it really bad? Is it really that bad? Like, this is something I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, is Lanterns and whether or not it was actually good or not. It seems like some people might be in the fence. Some people are on the side of, oh, this is kind of ass. And some people are disappointed. So it's an interesting perspective that we're getting here. And for me, look, I am a huge, I don't care. I'm a DC fan, and I know we're in kind of rough waters right now, okay? We are literally on life support, okay? I know it's kind of crazy to say I like DC more than I like Marvel, but let's be so for real, bro. The villains in DC, the heroes, the stories, I just love how raw that shit is. The psychology behind the villains, the story of the heroes and different things, right? The vigilantes and these different types. I just love the grittiness. I love the depth. I love all of it. I just love it. I'm more of a DC person at heart, and I'm pulling for them to finally get the movies and shows in order. Like, I'm just get your shit together, because I feel like when it has so much potential to be so good. They just need to get that shit right. And with Lanterns, a lot of people were saying it's gonna make or break the future of DC. And I have seen the Superman movie. I loved it. It made me smile. I enjoyed myself. I like the new Superman. So I mean, like, so far, good. The other characters seem pretty cool, interesting as well. So I didn't necessarily hate it. Sure, the things I'm not too happy about, but so far in this new universe, I'm okay with it. Supergirl, well, we're just gonna hope that they can smooth that over. But other than that, I feel like it seems kind of promising. And with the show, I'll be honest, when I first watched the pilot episode, I was like, this is boring as fuck. This shit boring. I think, like a lot of people, I was expecting more action, more Green Lantern action, some galactic type shit going on, but we didn't really get that. It was very much, on Earth in this small town situation. And when I first saw the trailer, I wasn't too crazy about it. Like, of course, I've been talking about Green Lantern, for I think in my old channel with my brother and I, like, there's talks of having a live action show way back in, like, I think 2021, 2022-ish or something like that. So I knew we were going to be getting some at some point, right? I was excited about it because Jon Stewart is literally my favorite Green Lantern, just not because he's black, or not just because he's black, but his aura, bro. In Justice League, his aura, that was the dude, that was the man. When he was on screen, dude just had that aura, whether it was in his normal everyday like human life, or whether it was like literally as Green Lantern kicking ass. Like, I love the character so much. And so when it came to Lanterns, right, I kept that in mind, whatever, and just tried to kind of observe the show just based off of what it was, what we were getting. And to me, yeah, it was boring. I ain't gonna lie. I thought it was boring. But then there are certain things that piqued my interest that I was curious about that I'm gonna get into, and things that I'm excited about, and why I'm being optimistic and open to what could be happening next. To me, it was just very slow and different things like that. And I was just kind of like, damn, it's kind of like a drag. I don't know if I'm gonna like the show. And for me, I don't really care too much for the whole detective type of situation. It's just kind of boring to me, especially because it's like, look, this is Green Lantern. I don't care about this shit, But I have to say, that's not really as big of a concern as it, I once experienced. So I think that slow burn, like, storytelling builds better long-term character payoff. I know that might be kind of crazy for some people to kind of agree with, maybe. I think some people, it kind of be one of those things where it will either pay off or it just won't. And they really just determined by the storytelling in and of itself. And for me, I think that's why I'm a little bit optimistic. It's like, yes, it was a bit slow, but I feel like they're building up the curiosity in these interesting points pretty well. I can definitely admire how they're taking a chance on the procedural, character-driven, like, superhero show. And it's actually refreshing to see that DC is taking such a risk. And even though it could take, a couple episodes for us to, to get its rhythm, I think that the foundation so far, it has potential. That's why I'm open to it. I kind of like the direction. I love the casting so far. And so, we have Kyle Chandler, who's playing Hal Jordan, and this version of Hal Jordan is definitely a little bit more, he's older, he's cynical, he's a bit burned out, right? He treats Jon Stewart, who's also played by Aaron Pierre, harshly, and so a lot of people did not like that shit. But I think it's kind of an interesting spin. It's kind of giving the vibe of, like, okay, picture this Avatar Kuluk, right? Who's disliked by many people, misunderstood, but really, like, he had good intentions, and he was really, like, struggling with that shit. He was a hero. you know what I mean? But he was just misunderstood, and he was going through a lot of shit, and people just didn't know that. So I'm wondering if like maybe there's something with Hal Jordan, like there's something more about his character, why he acts the way that he acts. Maybe he's misunderstood. Maybe he's, you know, dealt with a lot more things than people understand, and he has been keeping things, you know, safe for people, and maybe isn't fully appreciated for that. I don't really know, but I think it's kind of interesting, and I want to get to know this character more and kind of understand why he is the way he is. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot more to it, and so people feel like he's too unlikable and abrasive, and I feel like I don't really, it doesn't bother me too much, just because I feel like there's more to it. I mean, it's also kind of a little bit typical, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, whatever, let's see where they go with this. But then you also have people who are defending this character and saying that it highlights like his trauma, and also he's carried decades of you know, he's had a heavy burden, like carrying like so much for decades, right? And I think some people are just like, we'll try to have a little bit of understanding of why he might be that way, and I'm probably on that side. Why I'm open and optimistic is kind of like, I don't think he's just abrasive and unlikable just because I think obviously he is closed off and he has some trauma that he's experienced, and maybe everything that he's been through impacts that. Because I mean, bro most likely didn't go to therapy, so I'm sure that a lot of different things are, you know, there might be a reason for that. But honestly, like I said, it makes me more curious more than anything. And also there's like this weird controversy that I remember when this show is first announced and who will be playing and so on and so forth, and like this weird outrage around Jon Stewart leading or co-headlining this whole situation, you know, kind of like not taking a place, but you know, taking up the mantle after Hal or whatever. Some people are kind of just like seeing that as, you know, the typical like race thing or whatever, when really like Jon Stewart has been a core like iconic Green Lantern for decades, especially for the generation of fans that grew up with Justice League, like the animated series, which I, you know, already shouted out. I love Justice League, the animated series, and people seeing it as they're replacing Hal for whatever reason, when really that's not what's happening. Like, not in the way that they're probably thinking. What's the problem? Like, I just feel like it's kind of weird, and I feel like it's annoying how everything's turned into like a race thing. Well, he's really like a legit character. I would honestly love to see all the Green Lanterns, really. So, dealing with the antagonist of the situation. So the show starts off in like a small town. It's like a small town murder mystery in Nebraska, but it quickly connects to a much bigger cosmic conspiracy. And so the main bad guys in the show are the Manhunters. So instead of random aliens, the biggest threat is the Manhunters. They're ancient, and they're also rogue robot army created before the Green Lantern Corps even existed, but they also have shape-shifting abilities and can disguise themselves as humans, meaning that anyone in the town or in the government could secretly be one of them, which is what honestly kind of brought me in more. I loved the interrogation scene. That shit was entertaining for me. I loved it. It was interesting. For a moment, you thought that he was tripping, like, bro, I don't really know if he an alien or not, but at the same time, just kind of see him do what he do. It's like, and then find out what's an alien and everything. I found it interesting. I found it kind of fun. Got some good action in that moment or whatever. So I guess we're gonna be seeing a lot more of that. And I think, like I said before, I am interested in the unraveling of seeing how deep this shit goes and how it leads to the bigger issue and the bigger problem within the show. We also have Sinestro, which is Hal Jordan's famous arch villain, who's locked in a cell. He kind of gives off like Hannibal Lecter vibes. He's behind bars, and he's like, you know, he's still pulling the strings and dropping little cryptic clues here and there. And then you also have the local corruption as well. You have this local wealthy guy named Garrett, who is played by William Macon, orchestrating things behind the scenes for this mysterious cosmic boss, right? So you have like this whole thing going on. You definitely see how this system is orchestrated. You know what I mean? Like, there's levels to this shit. So you definitely know that there's something going on and it's something big. And that's what I'm here for. And I feel like as the show goes on, we're gonna get more of that action. We're gonna see more cool shit. That's what I want to see. Okay, so my question, because I want to see more lanterns. I want some lantern action. You know what I'm saying? And I think from what I'm told, I only seen the pilot episode, so this is what I'm saying here. So everything that I've said up to this point, or even before that, when I talked about like, you know, the antagonist and things like that, this also just comes from like what we know to be what it is, like who's going to be appearing and stuff like that, right? Guy Gardner is also supposed to be making an appearance. He's played by Nathan Fillion. He shows up to talk about like this bigger threat that's going on, and it also links the show to the wider DC movie universe. So I'm glad about that. It kind of gives like Marvel vibes as far as like having the shows linking with the movies and kind of like bringing it all like together, right, into this like massive universe, which I feel like is exactly what DC needs. But we also seen this character in the James Gunn Superman movie, which was also pretty badass as well. So it's also interesting how both Hal and Guy Gardner are both kind of like assholes in a sense, right? Of course, they're not on the same level, right? But it's kind of interesting to see that like Jon Stewart's character is the more like level-headed, like no bullshit, like professional type shit, which it's also gonna be cool to see his development as well, because obviously he had some trauma as a kid because his dad. So I'm like, that's a little bit weird. Maybe we'll get to see the dynamic with the dad and with Jon Stewart a little bit later, and how he ended up being the way that he was and whatever. But it's kind of interesting to see like how each of the Green Lanterns are kind of different, but also kind of similar too. But anyways, yeah, we're gonna be seeing him, so I'm hyped to see him as well. And also the world building. I think that the series established the wider corpse infrastructure, but it intentionally restricts like ring use on Earth to force Hal and John to rely on detective work, strategy, and character resilience. And I think that's what a lot of people was thrown off, because like it wasn't really used like that. We didn't really get like a lot of action and no real like Green Lantern shit that we would be expecting from a show that's called Lanterns, right? And I feel like that's intentional. I think they're holding off on. I think they're just trying to establish the foundation, the dynamics, and the strategy and detective work, all these different things, without bringing in the like Green Lantern ring power thing just yet. And I'm not totally against that. Like I said, as long as they bring that shit in later, I will be fine. As long as they make it like make sense, right? As long as they make it develop pretty well. So these are things that I'm aware of, and there's no secret. I think a lot of people kind of know this information already, probably, if you've been looking into the Green Lanterns. Could be spoilers. In that case, I do apologize. But like I said, I've only seen the pilot. But I did find it interesting because I've been seeing people talk about this. I'm like, this is cool as fuck. I actually kind of look forward to it. So I know it's like one of the type of things where like, everybody has their own taste, their own like, things that they like. And some people don't really like the direction that they're taking the show in. And there's other people that are more optimistic and excited. And I'm one of those people. So bring it on. I fuck with it. I like the casting. I think, we'll get to see some badass people. Hopefully, like I said, we get to see more Lanterns. Man, I'm kind of hyped for it. And I want to see how it fits into the broader universe. And yeah, I'm a DC fan all the way, and I'm going to be hoping that this works out. I'm going to be hoping that everything that they're doing right now is actually going to have some sort of payoff, and it's all intentional and for a reason, rather than, it falling flat, in the show, whatever. But anyways, that's my take on it. I think it's pretty chill. I think it's pretty dope. And this is why I think that slow building can be a good thing so far. Like, who knows? It seems like it's going to be a slow builder, slow burn, if you will, and I don't mind that. So let's see what happens. Yeah, peace.